Okay, so this is mostly going to be an archiving um, video for future purposes. Future Demise, we'll look back on this and be like, how far we've come. But today, I'm going to be talking mostly about the speedrun tech that exists in the community right now and what we're looking for and what hasn't been decided. So later on, when I'm doing this for myself, or later on when I'm grown and I've hopefully had the world record taken off me and taken it back, and hopefully never had it taken again. Um, we're going to be looking back at this and seeing what kind of things we can develop. So today I'm just going to be listing out all the stuff that we currently know. Um, I hope it's not too boring, but if you are seeing this video, it's mostly going to be like probably because I'm sick that day or something. But yeah, I'm gonna get started. Okay, so the date is late October or mid October, 2016, and crawl 0.19 has come out. No, it's still in trunk, I think. So it's 0.19, and there's been a couple of interesting changes to Minotaur, to Stalker and all that stuff. But let's get started with the basics first. So currently, the speedrun meta, I guess. There's a couple of branches of thought that I haven't exactly pinned down, but I'll try to do my best to describe it. So, as of right now, the overwhelmingly strong strategy is to play Minotaur Berserker, run two-handed axes with Trog, and abuse the fact that Minotaur and Berserker have a godly early and mid and late game for a 3-rune game to punch through most things in the game. The ending character will usually be around XL 23 to 25, maybe 24. I think my world record run at 41 minutes currently was XL 24. I think I don't remember. Um, but yeah, the current strategy is to move at a rapid pace through dungeon. Sorry. Okay, so the main things that we go through are um, dungeon. You skip most of early dungeon or some of early dungeon. I think you skip down to about D7 or 8. We only about half clear or maybe less than that, depending on how fast we can do it. It depends on time. It hasn't been set yet, which is the optimal strategy to continue clearing for a for a slower, safer clear, or to go for a fast, dangerous clear where you aim for one big enemy that you can berserk down and get that EXP back. But reasonably now, like currently, we're looking at mostly skipping the first 4 floors, I'd say, and then mostly clearing through 5 and 7, and then clearing up to lair. Doing lair, usually skipping lair 6, depending on the EXP flow. Uh, then we go to do dungeon, skip orc, do both rune vaults, both the two basic runes, and then do I think depths. You skip vaults entirely. You do depths, and then you go for a cheesy abyss rune or slime as your third rune, and then you do Zot. So that's the current like that was my world record pace. That was my world record. I believe that actually no, I'm pretty sure that was my world record strategy. I think I got a really fast abyss, and that cut a lot of time out. Previously, Sim was the other world record holder at 48:10, and his strategy was mostly a vaults based strategy, but with a huge by cutting the entirety of vaults out, we actually managed to save a buttload of time, as you can see by my um the gap. 7 minutes 10 seconds is a huge chunk of time that we took away by just cutting vaults out of the question. So that was the current strategy for Minotaur Berserker. Um, the interesting thing in that world record game was that I had a broadaxe of vampiric and a large shield rather than running the traditional two-handed weapon. Usually, the Minotaur Berserkers will run an Executioner's Axe or a Battle Axe of anti-magic or electrocution. If you can find vampiricism, I think at the current time, the idea is to always go for that vampiric weapon, as long as it's an axe, and go for shields. I'm not sure how it hasn't been discovered yet how good war axes are. So that's the current basic idea. We did a little bit of experimentation, and we found out that the harm amulet, is actually a kind of decent pickup for Minotaur. You can actually put it on in Lair, and you can one-shot Hydras with it. It's quite a risky strategy, but this is a speed run, so it doesn't matter. But yeah, Lair harm is actually better than we expected upon experimenting with it. On top of that, we figured out a couple of other like basic things, like if you're really strong and you find a really sick amount of loot in the early game, you can just straight up skip doing dungeon and then just go straight for your first rune. Usually, the current timestamps for okay, so it's variable between my runs, but usually Lair comes in at around 4 to 6 minutes. So we're at Lair by 4 to 6, and we complete Lair. Actually, no. I'm actually not sure, but I think it's about 4 to 6 minutes to get to Lair. Uh, Sometimes even more, depending on how slow it is. If it's a D11 Lair, it could be a bit slower. But you do tend to see the main checkpoint that we have currently is the first rune is usually, if you're going for a really good run, the first rune is about 20 minutes. So if you can get your first rune in 20 minutes, you're usually about settled. Very fast runs will have both runes done by 20 minutes. Um, but otherwise it's usually about 20 minutes. Okay, so what else is there? So currently, in this patch, Ultra and a guy called Shard, they did two different, and I think one other person, I'm not sure. I think it was actually just, yeah, okay, I'm not sure actually. But they've done experimentations with Formicid Fighter rather than Minotaur Berserker, and that's been a fairly interesting run. I'm not exactly sure how it operates, other than it's a Formicid Fighter of Okawaru, and it runs still the axe, still the shield. But supposedly the early game is slower and the late game is a lot faster, and you can skip all of depths instead of just doing it, which is fairly interesting. I'm not actually sure how that works, but that's the current idea behind them. So far, Ultra has shown some significantly good results. He may take the world record off me. I think his best attempt was 36 minutes in Zot 1. That is slightly slower than my world record pace, I think. I think I spent a little bit longer in Zot 1. I think I spent about almost 7 to 8 minutes in there. But that is still nonetheless very promising. I might actually try it myself. I will be updating this blog kind of like diary thing. This is mostly just to keep myself in line so I can figure out how much tech is in the community right now. In addition to this, we've also found that I've done some testing on Vinestalker Berserker because the idea behind it was the fast regen and the anti-magic bite would be significantly more powerful in the long run, because you could run massive regen, massive MP regen, and then Spirit Shield to absorb it. Anti-magic would stop the Ancient Liches from being a real problem, and Orbs of Fire, which would be pretty sick. And you'd also get the power of Trog. But preliminary testing has shown that it's not incredibly good, because berserking, you're so squishy in this kind of speedrun that you don't have time to consolidate that power. And you tend to just explode in the early game, and even in the mid game, you rarely have more than 100 hit points, and that makes it really difficult for you to create to go through all these high tension situations in like less than a minute. So it's actually fairly bad. Currently, there's no discussion as to whether the broad axe or the executioner's axe is the better choice for speedrunners, for Minotaur Berserker at least. We haven't actually been able to discuss it. I think, like I said, my world record was a broad axe and a large shield, which is unusual because every other game up until that point had been an executioner's axe or a battle axe if I was really unlucky. So I'm really not sure how that works. The sample size is too small. Like I said, the tech in this game is the tech for speedrunning in this game is ridiculously underdeveloped, and that's why I want to put a solid statement, I guess, as to where we are right now. And I hope that this will be useful for reference for either myself or other speedrunners trying to get into the game. let me think. So in terms of like just a couple of other notes, I think in terms of armor, you usually want to go for plate armor fire resistance. It means you don't have to try to do too much stuff with the with like fire dragon armor and stuff, and you need that RF for the orbs of fire, which are still going to be the most dangerous enemies in the game for you. I think flaming is obviously really overpowered if you get early game. It essentially guarantees that swamp can be done uh, before you finish dungeon, which is really overpowered. Um, Vampiric is overpowered. You always want to have that whenever possible, unless you have the flaming, of course. Uh, but you would want to switch. But the problem is, switching to Vampiric is very slow. Regen is obviously the best amulet given the choices. Uh, Reflection and Harm might be coming close. I don't think Harm would be useful in the late game because that time you're already doing enough damage. The main point of call is to get the survivability and regeneration to keep yourself alive. Um, let's see. Yeah, Berserk is significantly used. We haven't really used. Uh, I think Brother in Arms is used not as much in these kind of runs because you don't have time to position yourself. You use it when you're in high tension situations, but not to kill basic stuff or get EXP where you shouldn't. I think that might actually be a significant. It could potentially be a significant discovery if we were able to find a way to exploit high level Brother in Arms to kill like I don't know slime enemies or Volts enemies really early on, and just get some really big EXP. That could potentially be the groundbreaker, but I'm not sure. Ultra has talked a lot about like his aptitudes and like experience being important. I don't think that. So it's really kind of a standoff at this point. We're not really sure what the correct like statement is. Um, yeah, Hillock has been mostly shut out of speedrunning potential because it's an inferior Minotaur. Worse aptitudes, worse everything really, other than +3 to axes. Troll hasn't been discussed, mostly because Troll is not quite as good in the late game. Um, and yeah, like Demon Spawn, I think would take too long, but it could be something interesting. There was an idea by myself that has been toyed around with, but never actually used. That Ashen Zari could be good. I don't think that's the case anymore. I think it's too slow, but there is the dream of getting the Abyss Rune really quickly with no hassle. But I don't think it's feasible for speedrun, which is unfortunate because Ashen Zarya is pretty good. It's just it would take too much item management, even though technically you would only keep items. So yeah, that about wraps it up for the speedrun tech in the community right now. There's not that much, as you can see. I can cover it very quickly in 13 minutes. Um, but yeah, as time goes on, I'll probably be looking more at this, and I will try to develop the technology a little bit better. It should be pretty interesting. I legitimately think that speedrunning in crawl has a lot of potential. It's a um, very competitive environment. It's very fast paced. It's fun. It's random. It's interesting. It's a lot of things that you need to get done. So I don't know. It's pretty cool. Um, but yeah, we'll see how this goes. But hopefully this works. So to future Demise and to you future viewers, if you're coming back and watching this after like a year after it's published, I hope you're still playing Crawl, to be honest. I really do. And I hope you guys are still watching. That'd be nice. Anyway, thanks for watching, and yeah, see you guys later.